Chosen one, stop scrolling right now. This is not content, coincidence, or curiosity that brought you here. What you are hearing is a God's message, arriving in exact divine timing, and it reached you because something inside you recognized it before your mind had time to interrupt. That sudden pause you felt, that quiet stillness that made your attention slow instead of move on, was not random. It was recognition, and recognition always comes before understanding. This video is about why you were called, why your life has never followed an ordinary path, and why what you thought was lost forever is now being prepared for restoration. And if you stay until the end, the pieces of your past will finally begin to make sense. Listen carefully. This message was not meant for everyone. It never was. If it were, it would not feel this specific, this personal, this direct. Messages like this do not chase crowds or beg for attention. They find the chosen ones who are ready to hear the truth. And the fact that you are still here right now is already proof that something within you is awake enough to receive what is being revealed. You did not imagine this pull. You did not create it. Your spirit leaned forward before logic could interfere, because truth always speaks to what already knows. This video is about God's restoration, not as a theory, but as something already in motion. It is about what was taken, what was delayed, and why nothing in your life was actually wasted. It reveals why the struggle was real, why the pressure was heavy, and why the silence lasted longer than you expected. More importantly, it explains why all of it was necessary to prepare you for what comes next. What you are about to hear will reframe your loss, your waiting, and your identity. Stay with this message, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition, because this is not entertainment, it is alignment. And if this video found you, it is because your spirit was ready before your circumstances changed. What unfolds here will confirm why you were chosen, why the war was real, and why your light could never be extinguished. This is not the end of your story. It is the moment where clarity begins, and what comes next will only make sense if you hear this first. Hear this clearly from the beginning. God's restoration is already in motion, even if your eyes cannot see it yet. Even if your memory tells you that what was lost is gone forever. Even if time, distance, silence, or disappointment tried to convince you otherwise. Restoration does not begin when circumstances change. It begins when alignment is complete, and alignment is happening now. You may believe you lost too much. Time you cannot get back. People who walked away, versions of yourself that feel unreachable, opportunities that seem to close permanently, peace that disappeared during survival seasons. But this message exists to tell you something your pain could not explain. What was lost was not taken to punish you, and it was not removed to end you. It was separated to prepare you. If this resonates in your body, not just your thoughts, take a moment and comment, 777. Not for me, for you. Because acknowledgement seals alignment, and when you name what you feel, you step fully into it. This is not superstition, it is participation. And participation matters when God is restoring something sacred. This message will reframe your past. It will touch the places you learned to carry quietly. It will heal losses you normalized because you had no choice but to keep going. And it will realign your future, not by giving you something foreign, but by returning you to what was always meant to be yours, only now in a form you are finally ready to hold. Understand, this spiritual awakening is not emotional excitement, it is remembrance. It is the moment your soul recognizes truth. It has always known but forgot under pressure, fear, and adaptation. Awakening feels calm, steady, and undeniable. It feels like something settling into place rather than something exploding outward. And if you are here, reading this, feeling that quiet certainty that is awakening unfolding in real time, you were not overlooked. You were not late. You were not forgotten during the silent seasons. Silence is not absence. Silence is where foundations are rebuilt without distraction. And the fact that this message found you now and not earlier and not later tells you everything you need to know about divine timing. God does not rush preparation, and He does not delay fulfillment without reason. Chosen one, the war you felt was real. The resistance was not imagined, exaggerated, or created by your own thoughts. Light attracts pressure simply by existing. Your light was noticeable long before you ever understood what you carried, long before you had words for it, long before you were ready to claim it. That is why life responded to you differently. That is why your path demanded growth before comfort, awareness before ease, and endurance before reward. Your light is necessary, and necessity always invites opposition because it threatens what depends on darkness to survive. The struggle was not a sign that you were off course. It was confirmation that you were on the right one. Ordinary paths do not require refinement. Ordinary lives do not attract resistance. The pressure came because what you carry matters. You were being shaped under weight, because light that is meant to last must be stable, not fragile. What felt unfair was actually intentional. Hear this clearly now, without doubt or hesitation. Nothing that rose against you was ever allowed to destroy you. Everything that tried to stop you was permitted only to shape you, sharpen you, and strengthen you. You were never being punished. You were being prepared. You were never being rejected. You were being refined. Calling always comes with refinement, because purpose requires capacity. The pressure did not mean you were wrong. It meant you were important enough to be forged. There were moments you questioned yourself. Moments you wondered if you misunderstood your path. Moments where exhaustion whispered that maybe it would be easier to dim your light, to become smaller, to stop caring so deeply. But even then, something in you refused to fully shut down. That was not stubbornness. That was destiny holding its ground. This is where we circle back to the truth we began with, because repetition brings certainty. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what you felt. You are not misreading the signs. You were called. Your journey has not been random, and your losses were not pointless. Every separation served a purpose. Every delay carried instruction. Every closed door protected something you were not ready to carry yet. What you thought was the end was not an ending. It was a pause. What you thought was taken was not stolen. It was being held. And what you thought was over is not finished. It is already being prepared for return. Not as it was, but as it must be. Restored, refined, and aligned with who you have become through the fire. Stand in this truth now. Let it settle. You survived because you were meant to. You endured because your light is needed. And what is coming back to you will recognize the strength you had to grow in silence to receive it. Stay with this message, not because you need motivation, but because recognition deserves confirmation. What is unfolding now is not coincidence, it is design. And if this touched your soul, if something in you knows this is real, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. Why the loss was real, and why it was allowed. Chosen one, let us speak honestly now, without softening the truth or rushing past the pain. What you lost was real. The relationships that ended, the opportunities that slipped away, the confidence that slowly eroded, the time you can never get back, the peace that disappeared while you were trying to survive, even the version of yourself you no longer recognize. None of that was imagined. You are not exaggerating your grief. You are not being dramatic, and you are not weak for feeling the weight of it. This is a message from God, and it begins by validating what you lived through, not denying it. Being a chosen one does not mean being spared from loss. It means being shaped by it. It means walking a path where transformation comes through pressure, not protection. Loss was never proof that you were doing something wrong. It was evidence that something in your life could not remain the same if you were going to step into what you were called to carry. The pain you felt did not come from failure. It came from separation. And separation, when guided by God, is never random. What left your life had to leave in its old form. Some people could not follow you forward without holding you back. Some opportunities belonged to an earlier version of you and would have limited your growth if they stayed. Some dreams had to dissolve so truer ones could eventually rise. This does not mean what you loved was meaningless. It means it was temporary in its previous shape. Divine calling and chosen one paths almost always include removal before restoration, because elevation requires space. Hear this carefully. Loss is not punishment. Loss is preparation. God does not remove things to harm you. He removes them to protect what is coming next. There are seasons where access is cut, not because you are unworthy, but because you are becoming capable of more. Some doors closed because walking through them again would have cost you what you are meant to receive later. Some connections ended because familiarity would have kept you small, and some versions of yourself had to die because they could not survive the next level of responsibility. You may have blamed yourself. You may have replayed moments, wondering what you should have done differently, what you missed, what you failed to see. Let that burden go now. Self-blame is not humility, it is misunderstanding. God was not asking you to fix what He was intentionally dismantling. You were not meant to save what was scheduled to end. Confusion often comes when we try to keep what God is quietly releasing. This is where you must remember the truth again. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the war you felt. The resistance was real because your light is real. Light does not need to announce itself to be noticed. It is challenged simply by existing. That is why life pushed back. That is why the loss felt heavy. Necessity always draws pressure, and your presence carries necessity. What you lost did not disappear into nothing. It moved out of alignment so it could return differently or make room for something greater. God sometimes removes access temporarily because premature access can destroy future blessing. What arrives too early or stays too long can become a burden instead of a gift. Timing is protection, even when it feels like denial. You were called, and calling attracts refining. The war was not proof of opposition winning. It was proof of importance. Nothing was taken from you to end your story. It was allowed to shape you, deepen you, and prepare you to hold restoration without losing yourself again. You did not lose because you were weak. You lost because you were becoming strong. Stand in this truth now. Let the confusion dissolve. Let the guilt release. Let the pain be acknowledged without defining you. You are still here. You are still chosen. And what was allowed to leave was never meant to define your future. It was meant to clear the way for it. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. The season of silence was not absence. It was preparation. Chosen one, this part of your journey needs to be spoken about with clarity and truth, because the silence was one of the hardest seasons to survive. The quiet years, the delays that stretched longer than you expected, the prayers you whispered and never seemed to hear answered, the moments where it felt like nothing was moving, nothing was shifting, and nothing was happening at all. This is a message from God, and it begins by telling you this plainly: silence was never abandonment. Silence is instruction without noise. Silence is where God speaks without distraction. And for those who are called, silence is not empty time, it is sacred preparation. You were not forgotten. You were not overlooked. You were not placed on hold while others moved ahead. What felt like stillness on the surface was deep, intentional work happening underneath everything you could see. This is where spiritual awakening moves beyond surface belief. It is easy to believe when answers come quickly. It is easy to trust when signs are loud and visible. But awakening deepens when faith is formed without reassurance, when alignment grows without applause, and when identity is rebuilt without external validation. The silence was not meant to punish you, it was meant to root you. God works underground. He reshapes identity where no one can interfere. He strengthens discernment away from noise and influence. He removes dependencies you did not realize you had, on people, on outcomes, on timelines, on approval. What you thought was stagnation was actually divine timing, calibrating your inner world to match what you are being prepared to receive. In silence, you learned to hear yourself again. In silence, you learned who stayed when nothing was happening. In silence, your spirit grew stronger than your need for explanation. You may not have noticed it at the time, but you became calmer, clearer, and more grounded. The chaos that once pulled you no longer had the same power. That was not accidental. That was preparation. From the outside it looked like delay. From the inside, it was precision. God does not rush formation. He does not shortcut maturity, and He does not release what you are not ready to sustain. The quiet was not empty. It was exact. Every unanswered prayer was not ignored. It was being held until you could receive the answer without losing yourself again. This is why impatience does not belong here. Impatience assumes nothing is happening. Understanding knows that everything is happening, just not where the eyes are trained to look. Anxiety fades when you realize silence is not rejection. It is refinement. It is where strength is built quietly, without pressure to perform. You were called, and calling requires seasons where nothing makes sense on the surface. The war you felt did not stop during silence. It simply moved inward. Old fears surfaced so they could be released. Old identities cracked so truer ones could form. Your light did not dim. It stabilized, and a stabilized light does not flicker when conditions change. Circle back to the truth now. This is a message from God. You are not imagining what you went through. The quiet was real. The loneliness was real. The waiting was real. And so was the work being done inside you. Your light is necessary, which is why it was protected before it was revealed. Silence did not delay your destiny. It prepared you to walk into it without breaking. What felt like nothing was actually everything. And now, because the preparation is complete, movement is no longer dangerous, it is aligned. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. What was lost is not coming back the same. It is returning restored, chosen one. Now we arrive at the heart of this message, and it must be spoken with clarity and authority. This is a message from God, and it corrects a misunderstanding that has quietly lived in your mind. God's restoration is not replacement, it is elevation. What is returning to your life is not coming back smaller, weaker, or diminished by time. It is returning refined, aligned, and multiplied by purpose. You may have been waiting with an image in your mind, hoping for things to go back to how they were, but restoration is not nostalgia. God does not rewind time, He redeems it. He does not return you to old versions of people, opportunities, or even yourself. He brings back the essence, the promise, the blessing, without the fragility that once surrounded it. What returns comes stronger because it has passed through separation, refinement, and divine timing. This is where many struggle, because nostalgia clings to memory, while restoration requires maturity. Nostalgia wants the feeling back. Restoration delivers the lesson fulfilled. Nostalgia looks backward. Restoration moves forward, carrying wisdom. And God will never restore something in a way that would trap you in who you used to be. What was lost could not return unchanged, because you are not unchanged. Lost blessings are often recovered in forms you did not expect. A relationship does not always return as the same person. Sometimes it returns as a healthier connection, a wiser partner, or the ability to love without losing yourself. An opportunity does not always come back as the same door. Sometimes it arrives as a better one that fits who you have become. Peace does not return as silence around you, but as stability within you. This is restoration. What you mourned was not wasted. It was transformed. God gathered what you thought was scattered and reassembled it with intention. The delay was not decay, it was refinement. And refinement always increases value. What comes back carries clarity instead of confusion, alignment instead of struggle, and endurance instead of fragility. You must release attachment to old versions now, not because they were wrong, but because they were incomplete. Holding on to how things used to look will blind you to how they are meant to return. Restoration demands openness. It asks you to trust that God knows not only what to restore, but how to restore it in a way that will last. This is prophetic, but it is grounded in truth. What is coming back will not require you to shrink. It will not demand you betray your growth. It will not pull you back into survival mode. It will meet you where you are now, not where you were when you lost it. That is how you know it is from God. Circle back to the beginning again. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the shift you feel. You are not misreading the signs. You were called, which is why your losses were temporary and your growth was necessary. The war you endured was real, because your light is real. And light is not restored to flicker. It is restored to illuminate. What returns will recognize you. It will fit you. It will feel steady instead of chaotic. You will not have to force it, chase it, or fear losing it again. Restoration brings peace alongside provision, and when something is truly restored by God, it arrives without anxiety attached. Do not mistake delay for denial. Do not mistake silence for absence, and do not mistake change for loss. God never removes without intention, and He never restores without purpose. What you thought was gone forever was being protected from returning too soon. Stand in this truth now. Let hope rise without desperation. Let expectation exist without pressure. Your story did not end where you thought it did. It paused, matured, and realigned. And now restoration is not approaching. It is already unfolding. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. Why you had to change before restoration could arrive. Chosen one, this is where the message turns inward with clarity, honesty, and strength, because restoration is never delayed by lack of desire. It is governed by capacity. This is a message from God, and it speaks to a truth that reshapes how you see your waiting. You did not need to want the blessing more. You needed to become able to hold it without losing yourself, your peace, or your purpose again. What God restores carries weight, responsibility, and influence. Blessings from God are not fragile, but they are powerful, and power requires structure. Capacity is not built through wishing or praying harder. It is built through maturity, boundaries, and self-knowledge. That is why time passed. That is why experiences pressed you. That is why you were stretched in ways you did not ask for. You were being prepared to receive without self-abandonment. The old version of you was genuine, but it was still forming. It loved deeply, but it lacked discernment. It trusted easily, but it did not know how to protect itself. It gave endlessly, stayed too long, and explained itself too much. That version of you would have lost again what God is now restoring, not because it was weak, but because it was unguarded. God does not restore blessings only to watch them be drained, misused, or broken again. He waits until identity can sustain provision. You had to grow emotionally so that you would not confuse intensity with alignment. You had to grow spiritually so that faith would become steady, not reactive. You had to grow mentally so that clarity could replace overthinking. You learned when to say no without guilt. You learned when silence was wisdom, not fear. You learned how to walk away without needing closure from people who could not meet you where you were going. Boundaries did not make you distant, they made you safe. Discernment did not make you suspicious, it made you wise. Strength did not make you hard, it made you stable. You were not becoming less loving, you were becoming more whole. And wholeness is what keeps restoration intact. This is why identity growth always comes before restoration. Blessings do not simply enter your life, they attach themselves to who you are, and who you are now is not who you were when you lost what mattered. You are steadier under pressure. You no longer chase validation. You no longer betray yourself to keep connections alive. You listen more closely to what feels aligned instead of what looks familiar. That change did not happen by accident. It happened by design. Do not look at your growth and assume restoration is still far away. Growth is the announcement that restoration is near. God does not refine without intention. He does not strengthen boundaries unless something valuable is coming that must be protected. He does not mature your spirit unless what is arriving requires stability. The very changes you questioned are proof that timing is unfolding exactly as it should. Circle back to the beginning again. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the shifts inside you. You were called, and calling demands evolution. The war you endured forced you to rise into yourself. The pressure sharpened your awareness. The resistance revealed strength you did not know. You carried. Your light is necessary, which is why it had to be grounded before it could be expanded. This message is not here to place guilt on you. It is here to remove it. You were not slow. You were not behind. You were becoming. Responsibility does not mean blame. It means readiness. And you are more ready now than you realize. You no longer chase what God has reserved. You no longer beg for what aligns with your destiny. You stand differently. You choose differently. You trust differently. That is not delay, that is qualification. Restoration is not being withheld from you. It is responding to who you have become. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. Signs that restoration is already in motion. Chosen one, this is where awareness sharpens, because restoration rarely announces itself with noise. This is a message from God, and it speaks in patterns you feel before you see. Long before circumstances change, something shifts inside you. The first sign is not external reward, it is internal alignment. Anxiety begins to loosen its grip. The urgency that once pushed you starts to fade. In its place comes a steadiness you cannot fully explain, only recognize. You notice that your thoughts are clearer. Confusion no longer dominates your inner world the way it once did. Questions that used to spiral endlessly now settle without needing answers. You are not forcing clarity. It is arriving naturally. That is not coincidence. That is divine timing announcing itself internally before life rearranges itself externally. Energy returns in a quieter form, not frantic motivation, but grounded vitality. You wake up without the same heaviness. Tasks that once drained you no longer carry the same resistance. You are not suddenly doing more. You are doing things with less effort. That is a sign that alignment is replacing struggle. Unexpected conversations begin to surface. Not dramatic ones, but meaningful ones. Words land differently. People speak without knowing why. Doors hint at opening without fully revealing themselves yet. These moments are not meant to rush you. They are meant to reassure you. God often sends confirmation in fragments so you can recognize movement without becoming attached to outcomes. There is also a subtle sense of readiness settling in. Not impatience, not desperation, but preparedness. You feel like you could receive something without losing balance. You are not begging for arrival anymore. You are waiting without panic. That is one of the clearest indicators that restoration is already in motion. Restlessness fades. Where you once felt the need to escape, to change everything immediately, or to force progress, there is now patience. And this patience is not passive. It is confident. It knows that what is coming cannot miss you. When restlessness fades, alignment is present. This is important to understand. Divine timing does not arrive with anxiety. It arrives with peace. The closer you get to what is meant for you, the calmer your spirit becomes. That calm is not giving up. It is trust solidifying. It is your nervous system catching up to your faith. Circle back to the beginning now. This is a message from God. You are not imagining these shifts. You are called, and calling creates seasons where the internal world rearranges itself before the external world follows. The war you survived sharpened you. The silence steadied you. The preparation strengthened you. And now your light is no longer flickering under pressure. It is stable, present, and necessary. Do not overlook these signs because they seem small. God often confirms big movements quietly. He prepares you to recognize alignment so that when restoration arrives, you receive it without fear. You are not standing on the edge of something uncertain. You are standing inside something unfolding. Trust the calm. Trust the clarity. Trust the patience that has replaced urgency. These are not delays. They are confirmations. Restoration is not approaching from a distance. It is already active in your life, working through alignment, awareness, and readiness. If this touched your soul, comment 111. Because you know it, you were called. How to stay aligned while God completes the work. Chosen one, this is where guidance becomes posture, not pressure. This is a message from God, and it is not asking you to do more, push harder, or force outcomes. It is inviting you to remain aligned while what has already been set in motion completes its work. Alignment is not activity. It is steadiness. It is knowing when to move and when to be still without fear. Trust must replace force now. Force comes from anxiety. Trust comes from understanding. You are not behind, and you are not about to miss what is meant for you. What is aligned cannot pass you by. Desperation fades when discernment is active. Discernment knows when silence is wisdom and when movement is guided. Stillness is not stagnation. It is confidence that timing is already arranged. Your role is not control. It never was. Control is the illusion that you must manage outcomes to be safe. Alignment is the truth that what is meant for you responds to who you are becoming, not how tightly you grip it. When you stop trying to steer everything, clarity rises naturally. When you stop chasing signs, signs find you. Release timelines now. Timelines create pressure where peace should live. Comparison creates urgency where trust should stand. Fear of missing out convinces you that others are ahead, while ignoring that your path was never meant to mirror theirs. What God is building in you and for you requires a specific pace. Rushing it would fracture what is meant to last. God's message always arrives when readiness meets preparation, not before, not after. Exactly then. And that moment is not measured by clocks or calendars. It is measured by capacity, clarity, and calm. You are learning to wait without panic and to move without fear. That balance is alignment. Stay present. Stay grounded. Pay attention without obsessing. Let peace be your confirmation, not urgency. When something is right, it does not demand that you abandon yourself to receive it. It meets you where you are steady. Circle back to the beginning again. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the calm that is replacing chaos. You were called, which is why your posture matters more than your pace. The war you survived taught you endurance. The silence taught you trust. And now your light is necessary, which is why it is being guarded from reckless movement. You do not need to announce your readiness. You do not need to prove your faith. You do not need to explain your waiting. Alignment is quiet. It speaks through consistency, clarity, and peace. When you are aligned, you stop chasing confirmation because confirmation begins chasing you. Remain here, not passive, but anchored, not anxious, but attentive. God is not testing your patience. He is completing what He began, and what He completes does not require strain to sustain. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it. You were called. Final confirmation. This is not the end of your story. Chosen one, this is the final confirmation, and it is spoken with authority, not emotion. This is a message from God, and it is here to settle what your heart has been carrying for a long time. What you believed was lost forever was never lost by accident. It was never taken randomly. It was never removed to end your story. It was separated by design, preserved by timing, and is now being restored with intention. God does not tease destiny, He fulfills it. He does not awaken you to desire only to leave you empty. He does not refine you through fire only to abandon the outcome. What He begins, He completes. And what He completes is never partial, rushed, or careless. The delay you experienced was not denial. It was alignment catching up to purpose. Speak this truth into yourself now. This is not the end of your story. It never was. The chapter you thought closed was only paused. The silence you feared was final, was actually transitional, and the loss you believed defined you was shaping you for what comes next. Your future is not built on what you lost, but on what you became because of it. This message has circled back again and again for a reason. You are not imagining this. You did not misread the signs. You were called. The war was real because your assignment is real. The pressure was heavy because your light carries weight, and that light is necessary, not optional. The world does not need more noise. It needs steady, grounded light. That is what you carry. What is being restored will meet you at your level now. It will not drag you backward. It will not demand you shrink. It will not come with chaos attached. Restoration arrives with peace because peace is how you know it is aligned. You will recognize it not by intensity, but by steadiness. Not by fear of loss, but by confidence of belonging. If you feel aligned with this message, take a moment and comment 777. Let that be your confirmation, your agreement, your quiet yes. Alignment deepens when it is acknowledged. This is not about numbers, it is about recognition, and recognition seals what is already true. Chosen ones do not lose forever. They are refined, they are delayed, they are restored. What others lose becomes your lesson. What others abandon becomes your preparation. What others call the end becomes your beginning. This is how calling works. This is how destiny unfolds. Stand firm now. Do not rush forward. Do not look backward. Stay present. What is coming does not need to be chased. It is drawn to alignment, and you are aligned. This is the final reminder, and it carries fire and peace at the same time. This is a message from God. You were called. Your light is necessary. Your story is not over. It is entering a restored chapter that required everything you survived to reach. If this touched your soul, comment 111. Because you know it. You were called.